Well, welcome everybody. We've got something a little special for the last session. It's already kind of leaked out. I'm going to talk about Zoho Books and Zoho CRM. And one of the things that has really kind of been a problem within organizations since the beginning of time has been the interaction between sales and finance. I mean, this is, as I said, been since the dawn of time, one of the things that we really targeted when we set out to integrate Zoho CRM and Zoho Books. And I'm going to get to that. I'm going to show you exactly how we go about that. But before we go any further, I'll talk about some of the other issues related to finance and sales and the fact that they're diametrically opposed. Finance has different needs and requirements and responsibilities, moreover. Finance needs to provide accurate accounting and timely reporting, and they have a huge responsibility of compliance and corporate governance, right? And these are kind of lofty responsibilities. They're responsibilities that they need to take seriously, and it's probably no wonder why these guys are a little uptight and a little conservative. Makes sense, right? On the sales side, on the other hand, these guys are a little more freewheeling, right? They want to close business, they want to grow their pipeline, they want to close deals, they want to hit their revenue targets. And from a wants perspective, they want less friction in the organization, i.e. they want accounting and finance out of their hair. They want to sell more, and most importantly for sales reps, I don't care what people say, this has got to be on the top 2 list for them. They want to make money, right? So anything that gets in their way is not helping them make money. So with those two issues where there's non-alignment in terms of the data that both organizations are looking at, as well as this wants and needs mismatch, you get real practical problems. And we've all seen this in organizations. How many times have you seen, probably with your own organization, a customer record being represented 3 different ways in 3 different applications? It happens all the time, right? The account information's entered incorrectly, the payment terms may be entered incorrectly, and you get an inconsistent view of the customer. And ultimately, that translates into sales invoicing errors, billing errors, and poor execution for the company. So with that said, and I'm going to kind of get to the chase pretty quickly here, there is an alternative to this problem. And even more, there's a way to get finance to help sales sell. And it's really about leveraging the data that finance has to help sales sell. So what does that mean? When we set out, as I said, to integrate Zoho CRM and Zoho Books, which, by the way, we think and submit is a solution to the problem, we set out to eliminate siloed data stores, right? We want sales to be looking at the same data as sales. So we start with the single point of truth, or single data store of truth, and we merge and give the single point of data or single source of truth that we talked about to both sides. So on the right, we're looking at Zoho Books account information, customer information, Zeke's bar, and on the left, you see that same representation within CRM. There's a whole host of information like receivables and revenue that you see there as well, and I'm going to talk about this in some upcoming slides, but here's the starting point. Let's get on the same page in terms of customer information. So that's what we're doing. The second point, and this comes up all the time, you've got a sales rep that's working hard to generate business, trying to sell something, only to find out that the company does not sell that product any longer. Or the pricing that they quoted is not accurate. Or they don't have the product in stock. You're telling a customer, yep, I'll ship it out to you, but you're not aware that we don't even have it in stock. So by merging the items in the price list between Zoho Books and Zoho CRM, we solve one of the big problems and friction points between sales and finance. Here's another one, and feel free to go ooh, ah, when you see these slides here. Uh, so generating quotes, for whatever reason, has been an age-old problem. And the reason is because when we generate a quote, inevitably, finance comes along and says, why did you set it up like this? Why did you give them these terms? Or why are you charging, this amount when you shouldn't be? Why are you extending this discount? So the idea between connecting the CRM and books is that when the estimate or quote is generated, it is automatically populated in books. The finance team can look at it, and they can mark it approved if that's the workflow that you set up. You have a number of workflows that you could set up, and it could be automatically sent to the customer. And you probably can't read the details, but you have a tracking of the transaction as well. So now, when the salesperson wants to know, hey, did that estimate go out? They simply need to look into their own records, the customer account and contact, and see the exact same estimate in Zoho CRM. Now here's the Holy Grail. Invoices are probably the single most important document for an organization. It signifies revenue for finance, and it signifies to the sales team that they're one step closer to meeting their quota and hitting their commission numbers, right? And so what we do within, much like the estimates, what we do is we keep them in sync. And I'm going to show you workflows in a second here. But when an estimate is made, and it could be automatically turned into this invoice, and again, represented in both applications. This is one of the huge problems. It's much like the Brian Scott video example, where apparently Brian in the example has a list of transactions that he thinks should be part of his commission. But of course, if it hasn't been invoiced, then he's not going to get a commission for it, right? So really what he needs to be looking at is, what does finance think has been invoiced? And that is what is available within the CRM. The overall quote to order process is key. There's so many pitfalls for sales and finance to get out of sync. This example right here is talking about inventory and availability before shipping. And so this is a big problem. You sell a customer hard as a sales rep, only to have to come back later and say, hey, sorry, we're not going to be able to get it to you. We don't have inventory. Now, the sales rep, when they're creating an order, has the ability to see the quantity on hand and notify, if the customer says, yeah, sure, go ahead, and notify procurement that we have additional demand. You have to go out and place an order for that particular product. This is another bugaboo for salespeople. You work as hard as you can on that big deal, and you finally reel it in, and you take your order to finance, and they say, hey, guess what? They have no credit. They've got a bunch of receivables out that they haven't paid for, right? And they just wasted all that time. Now, within the CRM, they could actually see the receivables as soon as they open that contact and account information. Moreover, they can drill into it deeper. They could look at the invoices, and they could do one of two things. One, they can go out and talk to the customer and say, hey, you really need to get these invoices paid so we can process this next order. Or they can say, I'm not going to spend any more time on this account and move on to a more productive account, right? But this is insight that has not always been there. So speaking of insight, here's an example of the integration where we're talking about increasing sales to existing customers by leveraging finance data. So if we can get the data in a format to help sales, that's a value add. That's streamlining processes, that's raising revenue. In this case, here's a simple report that's based on finance data that shows my customers that have purchased, not necessarily, this is insight that the sales rep can get, but shows that Chateau Grand Maine, which also happens to be an expensive bottle of wine, well, not that expensive, seems to be a hot product, right? And my sales rep can see that. And if they're looking for sales strategies, they take that information and they're going to go to the next customer to say, hey, we've got Chateau Grand Maine. And this is where you can take finance data and help salespeople. So keeping in line with helping sales sell, the next topic here is really automating some of the tasks that sales reps have to go through that keeps them away from focusing on selling to the next customer. This is some workflow that we've had in the integration for a while, and it's only getting enhanced. And this workflow is showing that when a sales rep in the CRM creates a potential, it can also automatically trigger a quote. And the quote can go out to the customer. Depending on how you set up the workflow, it could go out after finance approves it. And once the stage has changed from a potential to an early stage potential to a closed one, what can automatically be triggered is the invoice being generated and sent to the customer without any interaction from the sales rep, and frankly, without any interaction from the finance team as well. So this is some of the automation workflow that we already have as part of the integration. So the workflows we just covered, and then finally, some additional insights that are available by being able to tap into the finance data. The sales rep saying, hey, I think my commission should be X, finance is saying Y. We can run a quick report off the finance data to see exactly what's been invoiced and calculate my commissions. So that is functionality. I covered functionality that's in Zoho Books CRM integration today. I also touched in those last few screens on some functionality that we're expecting in the next 30 to 60 days. And now I'm just going to highlight a few futures, if you will, what we're working on that really is going to change the game in terms of how finance and sales work together. So these are some of the areas that we're focused on in terms of enhancing workflows, collaboration, policies, and analytics. Let's just jump right into them. And as I do that, let me first say that all of this is being powered by not only Zoho Books, but some other applications that we have within our finance portfolio. And this is our finance portfolio. We've got Zoho Books. As Raju mentioned earlier, we kind of look at that as the cornerstone of our offering. A lot of the other applications tap into that data, including obviously Zoho CRM. Raju talked about Zoho Expense. Zoho Subscriptions is a relatively new application that is in place to help support businesses that have a subscription model. It's not an easy task to manage those types of businesses because it doesn't really fall into traditional accounting. And I'll talk about some of the data that we leverage out of Zoho Subscriptions in this futuristic integration with the CRM. And then I also gave you some new information on a product called Zoho Inventory. By the way, I've got a little flyer that the product team gave me back there that you can take with you, and we'll see that in the next couple of months as well. And that, again, is inventory management, order processing, procurement, all rolled into Zoho Inventory. Okay? So with that, let's look at the future of what an account or contact screen will look like from a sales perspective in the future with financial detail. So this is actually quite beautiful in my opinion, having been both on the finance side and the sales side. I could see the financial detail in terms of the total revenue attributable to that customer. I could see it on a periodic basis. I could see my subscription information. Again, I'm pulling that from Zoho subscriptions. I could see what plan they're on. More importantly, I can see a renewal date so that me as a sales rep, I can stay alert and make sure that the customer renews their subscription. Finally, the expense detail related to that account that Raju talked about earlier is available right within the CRM. So that is where we're heading from a Zoho CRM experience perspective. Here's some other things that we're working on. Commission tracking. So we just absolutely knock out Brian's problem. We calculate the commissions real time within Zoho Books, and they're populated within Zoho CRM, so your sales reps know exactly where they're at. We can even get to the point where we're doing wire transfers, ACH transfers, and links to payroll systems to pay our sales reps as well. The bottom part there in terms of automate restrictions, this is probably for those finance guys and accounting guys. Us sales guys don't care much about that. But the fact of the matter is, we can set up some restrictions that may be interesting to sales where you're stopped from entering an order, a sales order, or creating an invoice knowing that you don't have enough inventory on hand to create the order and send it to the customer on time. So here's another set of data that we are going to work into our workflows. This has to do with insight on your customers that's generated from Zoho subscriptions. Most of us in the subscription business, certainly Zoho understands this, keenly focuses on churn rate. If I'm losing customers, it's a problem, right? I have an expectation of what my monthly revenue is going to be. If that's dropping, because one of the reasons it could be dropping is churn rate. So I might want to drill deeper. Is it a product problem? Is it a customer service problem? This information, when a customer churns, will be available. When they leave you, will be available in the CRM. Tell me when customers sign up. Sometimes sales doesn't have the visibility. If, for example, it's an online service, they sign up, they don't know, but now they'll get notified through the data that we capture within Zoho subscriptions. When are accounts expiring? I want to focus on those. I want to go back out and make sure the customer's happy with the service so we get them back again on another plan. The note here on unified communications, finance will now have direct access to sales forecasts as well. And that's important from a finance standpoint so that they can do their planning and their budgeting and allocate budgets to the various organizations based on projected sales. So here's some other interesting collaboration functionality. I already talked about expiring service accounts, but rather than waiting to have the sales rep open up their commission and find out that you clawed back their commission because the customer hasn't paid their bill, send them a notice well in advance that it's a problem and the customer needs to pay. And the sales rep will get on it because they don't want their commissions taken away from them. And we have the concept of real-time negotiations. Rather than picking up and going from your office or sending emails, to have real-time collaboration between CRM and the finance team that's managing the Zoho Books application, to have real-time discussions on negotiations. Policy violations, again, from a sales perspective, these are probably less interesting but very important from an accounting and finance standpoint. Finally, let's talk about analysis. This is a big part where we think we can have an impact, not only taking down the barriers between sales and finance, but taking it to the next level. So what does that mean? The first example is a great one. We track the long-term value of a customer. We know when a customer is likely to leave us through Zoho subscriptions, right? We've got all these customers. We do the calculation on how long they stay on subscription. So if I know that I'm reaching that milestone, that let's say it was 24 months, then I want to send that notice to all my sales reps automatically and say, hey, we're reaching that critical point where we lose customers. It's time to check in with them. It's time to let them know that we love them, and let's keep them going on our subscription. So that's one of the real kind of insights that we think we can bring just based on all the data that we're collecting. Which customers are likely to be collection issues? They may be on track right now, but historically they've been a collections problem. And so if we can pass that information on to a sales rep as they're doing an order, that's good insight for the the sales rep to have as they're having negotiations with customers. So I kind of breezed through some of these sections. Thanks, everyone.